Here we are, Mama.
Yes, Mama, here we are.
You and me and you.
What a
Here we
pair,
are. The other day we were talking on Marco Polo.
as we do.
Yes. And you were telling me about Brene Brown had this video that you had just watched. Would you share a little bit about it?
Yeah, she was doing, I think it was a podcast interview. I don't remember who the podcaster was or who the interviewer was, but they were talking about this subject of friendship and how in the media, social media, things like that, we get this image of what friendship looks like, and we see these images of big groups of people, multiple friends all getting together and having a good time, and this image gets planted in our minds that that's what friendship is about. But she was emphasizing how you really only need one or two people in your corner, and it's not those surface kinds of friendships where, oh, let's go out to eat and we're just going to chit chat and gossip and things like that. But it's the kind of friendship that when you're really in the thick of your emotions, I think the example that she used was somebody lied to somebody and then they were in this shame storm, this spiral of shame, and how all you really need is one or two close friends that you can call in those moments and say, hey, I am really in it right now. I feel awful. I don't know what to do about it, how to move through it. And it's those really close friendships that are there to not be an echo chamber and tell you that you're doing okay, but it's those friendships that are there to walk with you through it and say, okay, let's talk about it. Let's work through this. Let's see what's going on. Let's talk about it. So it just really struck out to me that, it's so true. We have these images of what friendship should be and should look like, but really you just need those one or two core friendships in your corner to really make a difference in your life. And it made me think of us.
Same. When you shared that with me, it really birthed the idea of you and I coming on this call to talk about our friendship because it's so much more than a friendship. It's such a sacred connection that you and I have. And from the outside, if people look at you and I side by side, friends, we're different. But what I love is it's such a beautiful anomaly. We're such a beautiful anomaly right now in this time of, our world. Because while we look very different on the outside, you and I have cultivated such a deep, safe, loving relationship. And I
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit more about that because I feel like this is an area that it just gets to have more love.
hmm I agree.
Yeah. So do you want to start with sharing how we met?
Well, I think
I
it's funny
like you
because
say it.
what do you mean you like how I say it? I think it's hilarious because you like to brag about you reaching out first, but I'll build up to that. So so I'll start and then I'll let you jump in with it. Um yeah, you and I both decided to sign up for a spiritual entrepreneur business online course through Jolie Dawn. And she was somebody that I had come to know. I don't even know how you came to know her, but my gut told me to sign up for this course. And all I remember, not all I remember, but one of the things I remember is, how people, when they're doing the online courses and they'll bring people on with them, kind of like how the two of us are on the screen here together, they'll bring somebody up and highlight them to have a conversation around what's going on. And I don't even really remember what you were being highlighted for. I just know that you were picked to come on the screen. And I just remember thinking, wow, I really love her energy. Like she's gorgeous, of course. Her voice is amazing. The things that she's saying are just so heartfelt and authentic. And I just really loved your energy. And you stuck out in my mind. I was like, man, she'd be really cool to know, I bet. And then I don't even remember how you got, so like I'm gonna let you jump in here because I don't even remember how you like spotted on me.
So, I mean, right, we're in the Zoom call and there's all the little boxes, right? And I always
Yeah.
scroll through who's in the call. Who can I see? And I remember scrolling through all of the slides of the little boxes and seeing you and seeing, your hair is very unique. You had that, like you had it really, I don't know, your background was really beautiful. Like, and then
And some
whenever
wall hangings.
yeah, well, you're traveling now, so but it was very different, then. Um, so it just stood out to me. Energetically, there was a pull there. And I felt the inspiration to directly message you like, "Hey, what my friend?" And I think at the time I was thinking of doing some type of a online event, and you had shared you were Reiki master, Reiki Holy Fire master, and I was like, well, maybe they do, energy work. I want to learn more about that, and see if we could work together on that online event. And it kind of blossomed from there. But that was the beginning, me reaching
Yeah.
out to you to see if we could collaborate for an online event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were looking for somebody who had experience or knowledge of feng shui. And I was like, well, I don't have anything, but we can still jump on a call together. And we
Yeah.
did. And it was just like flow. It was
Yeah.
resonance. It was
Yeah.
just like we had always been friends or something. And that just kind of started the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And and then I'd like to kind of just go through a very brief version of our timeline together because it's been what, like a year and a half, 2 years?
A year and a half. Yeah, I think
A year and a
spring
half.
will make 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So in the beginning, we started chit-chatting on Marco Polo. I turned you on to Marco Polo, right? That the video app where you get to video vlog each other,
Yeah.
and share with each other. And you were brave and willing to try that out with me. And that's initially how our connection began.
Yeah, I used to be so resistant to it. I used to use other things like the voice messaging ones, like Voxer and things like that. And I had friends in the past that tried to get me turned on to Marco Polo, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't want to download another app. But then you're like, get on Marco Polo. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, it would be nice to see each other face to face in that way. And so, yeah, I got on there and it was just like, this is the way.
Yeah. And so for a full year, you and I had a virtual relationship where
hmm
we, communicated back and forth. And the more our shares, were going, the deeper they went, the more intimate we became with each other. And there was a true sisterhood,
hmm
family connection, trust and safety and commonality. We really met each other where the other was at with each and
Yeah.
every call.
Yeah, it was so beautiful the way that we held space for one another in whichever ways that we were showing up. Like you were sharing, it started out with just like the regular things you share about your day and the things that are going on, but the deeper we got, the more we just held this beautiful space of understanding, of love, of curiosity, of non-judgment, and really allowing each other to show up however we were needing to show up in the moment and giving each other love and grace and whatever we needed in that moment, even if it was like a little bit of space, like I need some time to myself kind of thing.
Yeah,
So yeah,
beautiful. And then at the end of that year, we met physically for the first time, which
it was
was
my
so
birthday gift.
it was your birthday gift, right? Because you lived in Ohio that whole time, and I was
hmm
in San Diego. And you flew out to San Diego, and we got an Airbnb in this beautiful sacred
Oh,
area. And I think for me, that was really, an opportunity for us to really learn each other and connect to each other on a deeper level. How was
hmm
that for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was a bit nervous because like you have this, I mean, we both have our own unique presence and energy, but I was not used to being in such intimate space with somebody that had such big energy the way that you do, and that was like even it, I perceived it as even bigger than mine. And so it was like, oh man, how am I going to be? How is she going to be? Are we going to be cool together? And I know that at least I feel like because it was my birthday and there were all these things, I feel like there were just varying levels of emotions that I was moving through during that trip. But at the same time, regardless of all of that, it was such a beautiful experience. Like the Airbnb that we had was on such sacred land with this labyrinth and these sacred statues and this what I liked to call a temple at the end of the pathway. And it just felt so holy, you
Yeah.
know, and getting to experience this time with you. And there were moments where we would be just holding such space for one another in ways that I wasn't used to having space held for me. You know, I haven't
Yeah.
had too many friendships, especially friendships where you can tap into your own unique brand of spirituality and connect on that level. Like that for me was a first, is having somebody that I could truly connect with on such deep levels, who could hold space for me and also match me in the spiritual realms and be able to understand literally any of the things that we needed to talk about, or any of the things that came up. We never had a point where we didn't get it or we weren't able to be with one another. It was just like this beautiful honoring dance of respect and reciprocity and seeing and being seen and being held.
Yeah, and that's what I wanna drop into a little bit more because I think this is what Brené Brown is talking about. The safety of a relationship where you can show up so authentically in your own messiness, in your own spirituality, in your own celebration, in your own process, in confusion, right? Like, however you are, however you and I have been, we've continually, whether it be on the Marco Polo app or in person or a FaceTime call, we've continually been able to hold a very potent, unconditional love for each other. So,
Hmm.
'cause I this is the piece that I the nut that I really wanna get to for me, to offer to others that are looking for these meaningful relationships, and kinda open this up a little bit, and let's let this breathe a little bit so that we can really what are the components that have brought us to this place of I would call a sacred union, sacred relationship? What do you think for you they've been?
The biggest one, the biggest one for me in this moment is, and this is something I really admire about you, and I think I learned a lot from you in this regard as well. Like, yes, I brought my own energies with it, but I also feel like I've learned a lot from you. And that is this ability to always return to love, to always be operating from a space of love, whether that meant love for yourself enough to know that, okay, I'm in my own process, I need a little bit of space, or, you know, I'm a little confused about this, so let me tap in with myself and see what my heart has to say about this, see what love has to say about this. What would love do in this situation? How would love approach this? And it's that being able to hold that energy of love for one another and really just always coming back to that. It's been the
Yeah,
most potent piece for me.
yeah, I love that. And for me, to be honest, it's been safety.
Mm,
It's been safety because I've had relationships with women. I come from, a dysfunctional relationship with my birth mother, with my mom who died of alcoholism. So that connection with, I will say, the feminine, just for the purposes of the context here, it has been fragmented for me. It's been wounded for me. So even up to recent, I've had really beautiful, loving connections with women that have not been able to withstand the test of discomfort in our relationship, and they've completely checked out of really difficult conversations that were happening, things were happening between us, and the conversation to recreate more cohesiveness for us and to level up was not present. So for me, with you, there have been several times where you and I have reached a dissonance. We've reached like, oh, well, this is uncomfortable. This is wonky,
Yeah.
and oh, I don't that I don't know. I'm not sure. That doesn't feel right for me, or this doesn't feel good for me. But we have always had, for me, I feel this. We have always cultivated, co-created such sacred safety in our connection that even when I was feeling upset maybe or activated, triggered by something maybe that you said or were doing or whatever the case may be, I felt safe enough to bring it to you.
Mm, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've had similar issues with safety in friendships, in relationships, even with my own family. Like I don't have safety there, and I'm not often seen. So I would agree 100% on that. That
Yeah.
ability to create that safe space to really approach one another with whatever it is.
Yeah. But here's where I want to bring it back to you, Mama, because right, it took the courage in me to like, okay, I want to say this thing and I'm going to say this thing. And right, it's a practice. When we're saying uncomfortable things, it's a practice. So I'm like, fumbling through it and finding the words and crying my eyes out, right? And all the things. But as far as on your end, you have always received whatever I have brought to you with a level of groundedness and
Mm.
detachment from taking it personally. You've always, every single time, you've had the ability to kind of detach from the personal, maybe, reflection of what I was sharing and look at it from a broader perspective. And
Hmm.
that for me has been the thing that has enabled us to move through, in a harmonious way through some really difficult conversations where maybe we didn't see eye to eye on things.
Yeah, in this moment, it makes me think of, we like to talk a lot about Mel Robbins and this whole theory of let them. And in those moments where there were things that either I did or said or whatever the case may be, where you were having these big feelings and not sure how to present it to me, I wanted you to feel safe enough to be able to share what was on your heart because it was important to me to be that space of safety. I feel like so many of us don't get to experience that level of safety. And it's very important to me to be that safe space for somebody else because I don't want to be the reason that somebody else gets stumbled on their journey and has a bad, experience with friendship or connection or has, leaves a bad taste in their mouth. Like, yes, we all make mistakes, but I feel like it's so important to maintain healthy connection with people that you really care about. Like by the point that we had started diving into these situations where we're like hitting these potential stumbling blocks in the relationship, we had already built up that level of love and safety that it was like, well,
Mm,
who am I to betray what we have already built? Who am I to turn my back on somebody that I proclaim to care about in the ways that I do? When they're coming to me in this space of confusion, of not knowing what to do, of not, of processing new feelings, of new ways of being, like, and that's kind of the whole point is we're in this space of growth and evolution. Our whole entire life journey is all about changing and growing. Like we are constantly growing and evolving. And so I think, and not to necessarily sidetrack into another point, but in regards to that safety and the love that we've already talked about, a large part of it for me has been having enough self-awareness to
mm,
know when something is and is not about me, but it's recognizing, okay, this person that I love is experiencing either a trigger or an emotion. They're going through something. So, how can I, from a space of love and self awareness, hold the space for them to feel their feelings, recognize and acknowledge my participation in creating and co creating that energy? And how can I look at it through love, look at it through the lens of safety, and adjust myself accordingly? I think that's been something that's been really big for me too, is recognizing the energy that I bring into something. You've really helped me a lot with recognizing the energy that I bring into things, because I think it's easy to get in these patterns and these habits of just showing up however. And I think one of the things that I used to say a lot, before I even met you was, well, if somebody really loves me, they're going to accept me just as I am. And it creates this blanket excuse for never reflecting on your own behaviors or your own actual energy that you're putting out, behavior or not. How are you being? So, in all of that, it was like, okay, well, how am I being in this situation? How can I create more safety and more love? How can I listen to what's being presented to me with an ear of like I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself, this ear of reflection and love, and not taking it so personal. And I think some of it is this energy of, we've all been, I feel like we've all experienced traumatic relationships in our life. And so we have a certain level of anxious attachment to people and to things, and this fear of abandonment. And oh no, this person is upset by something. So that means that they're going to turn their back on me and they're not going to want to be friends anymore. And it was recognizing my own repeating patterns and thought patterns and cycles in that, and learning to like step away and say, okay, that feels like an old pattern that's repeating. So let's look at this from a space of love and what's really going on here. Let them have their process. Let me have my process. And how can we come back into a more resonant space?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel that, a big piece that has offered you and I an opportunity to continue to grow is our own individual intention of taking responsibility for ourselves, right? Like if I'm over, if I found myself maybe projecting something onto you that maybe was actually going on somewhere else, or or whatever it was, each of us, we as individuals, continue to really take inventory of ourselves and have a really integrous level of self-responsibility, I feel.
Yeah.
Like we, kind of veer off from time to time, but we really hold a standard for ourselves in this space of, wanting to be better and wanting to grow. So I think that's a big piece in our conversations when we're wanting to grow together, grow individually and also grow together in our relationship. Because, Mama, you and I have had some hard conversations,
Oh, the
right?
self-reflection.
We've had some hard conversations, but I love that because I feel
Yeah.
like with each hard conversation that you and I have had, despite the discomfort that we each felt in our own way right before we were having it, or even during the conversations, we both have grown as individuals and have become closer as friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been so much learning that has happened for me in our
Oh,
friendship.
a hundred
Yeah,
percent. Honestly, that, not to put grandiose statements on things, but our friendship has been the biggest catalyst for growth of any of the
yeah,
friendships that I've probably ever experienced, to be honest,
yeah.
because of that level of having the hard conversations, but also both of us choosing to be in that space of self-awareness, growth. What can I learn from this? How can I be better with myself? And it's less about, it's this is, I feel like this is also very important. It's less about being better for the other person and putting on a mask and limiting ourselves and, oh, I've got to make a compromise on this situation over here, otherwise we can't be friends anymore. But rather than that, it's been about, okay, what is this showing me about myself? How do
Oof.
I feel yeah, how do I feel about what it's showing me? And is that really something I want in my life and in my energy?
Yeah, because we all know the external is a reflection happening for us. And you and I have been exquisite mirrors for each other
Oh,
in our time.
yeah.
I love this. I want to pivot for a minute because I want to talk about, right? Like I am straight, straight, straight.
I am queer AF.
Right. So let's talk about that, right?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
talk
talk
about
about it.
this. How has that been for you, right? In our friendship?
I mean, honestly, I don't even really feel like it's played too much of a factor. Like,
Same.
I am who I am, you are who you are. Sometimes we have different interests, but at the same time, we support each other in those interests. And it's not really ever been like, I think sometimes people look at a straight girl and a queer girl and they're like, "Ooh, is the queer girl crushing? Are they trying to like?" And but it's not ever even been about that. It's just always been this genuine soul love. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the love that I have for you surpasses any of the types of love that we want to compartmentalize into boxes of, oh, it means this and oh, it means that. And it's just
Mm,
this big expression of love.
yeah.
It's the energy of God, of the universe. That's the type of love that I feel for you. Is just that genuine, heartfelt soul connection, soul family. And
Same.
it's just never for me been a factor or an
Yeah.
issue or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, same. And you've taught me so much, you've taught me so much about, you know, pronouns and just, there have been things that I'm like, oh, did I say this right? Mama, I said this or that, or am I saying it right? And you've brought so much love for me to learn and to grow in that arena. So, it's been definitely a learning experience for me, but I feel the same way. It's been it almost feels like a non-binary love. It
Yeah,
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's one way or that way. It feels like it simply is. Uh,
exactly.
and it flows in all the different directions so beautifully. And we've joked with the oh, you look so cute, no homo. Is that the saying? Am
Yeah,
I
yeah,
getting
yeah. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
girl, you look beautiful today. No homo.
no homo. Right. So yeah, I just wanted to yeah, bring some love to that because that too has been a part of who we have been together.
Yeah, and I think some people like they get this concept in their head that, oh, your community has to look a certain way, your soul family has to look a certain way, and it can only be people of a similar nature. But I think that's part of the beauty of this is that we're demonstrating that it can be different cultures, different lifestyles, different ways of being don't really necessarily make a difference in terms
Yeah,
of whether or not two people can have that genuine love.
yeah, yeah. I love that. That's so, so, so good. So potent. Thank you, Mama. Yeah. So what else? Is there anything else we'd love to share with other people about, the importance of having the less is more. I remember
Mhm.
we want to talk about that, right? So, in Brené's Brown video, you were sharing that Brené was talking about, we have this idea that it's supposed to be like this massive group of people that, we're always socializing with, and we have so many friends and we're popular. And for me, the experience with you has really been you are, the number one, you're, the number one that I go to when I'm having a tough time or just want to say hi or I'm celebrating something. You're the first person I hit that button and record to, and so I'd love to speak into a little bit around, this idea that society has around having all the friends and having those close connections with all those friends, when in reality, it's been my experience, you'll have those close connections, those authentic, safe, this level of love connection with maybe 1 to 3 people, and 1, 2, or 3. How about you? What's been your experience?
I agree. I've had really close connections and have really close connections with people, but the level of consistency is has
Mm,
been huge. And I think, there's everybody's got their own lives, the things that they're doing, their own obligations, and it can be a lot sometimes to expect one person to be your everything. It's kind of unrealistic to expect one person or two people to be your everything. But when there is this level of connection, that's kinda how it ends up being. It's not that you expect them to be your everything, it's just you have this level of flow and resonance in the relationship, you're on the same wavelength and the frequency, and it's not something that you find a lot of, where you can get that consistency, where you're both whether it's a choice or whether it's just the feelings of love that you have, it's, in my opinion, a bit rare. It is a bit rare to have that level of a connection with somebody. So,
yeah,
yeah, throughout the years, like 1 or 2 here and there, sometimes stretches where there's nobody that fits that description, and so I'm just like,
yeah.
"Well, here I am."
Yeah, and again, I think that also highlights the why is because so few are showing up authentically. So few are showing up with the intention of, I'm sharing in this relationship, but I'm also opening myself to look at myself and to show up differently in my connections with people, and to allow our dialogue together to help me grow and to help me be a better person. I find that less are doing that, and more just want to put on the show of everything is amazing,
Yeah.
So I wanna talk a little bit because this reminded me of the anxious attachment style. You and I have talked about anxious attachment. You and I have talked about codependency and,
Mhm.
and finding the balance in not leaning towards those anxious attachment or codependency, those ways of coping, because the truth is you and I both come from extensive trauma. So, in our time together and in our connection together, I know that I have really sat with the question of, am I being codependent with Sarah? Am I holding anxious attachment with Sarah? And again, when those feelings have come up with me, I've gone into a space of self inquiry. Right, like,
Mhm.
what's my intention? Am I avoiding something and latching on to Sarah? Am I over leaning into Sarah? Right? So it's really offered me an opportunity to question myself, and I want to talk about the beauty that can happen aside from those things. It doesn't need to be the anxious attachment, doesn't need to be the codependency. If someone is being taking inventory of themselves, that there can be a potent flow of connection with someone without it being dysfunctional.
Yes. Yes, I think, we've been so trained in society, and society has created so much dysfunction in relationships that I feel like we have this constant fear of not enoughness. Either we're not enough, or there's not enough time, or there's not enough space, there's not enough connection, there's not enough availability. There's just all of these things that create this anxiousness within us. But I love what you were saying about the self-reflection piece. There's been times where earlier in our friendship, there were times where I would kind of like back off a little bit from messaging because I was like, I feel like I'm sharing too much, and I think maybe I'm being codependent, and I want to share because I like her and I like sharing, but I don't know if it's the right time to be sharing. And then you've lovingly been like, okay, well, what's going on? I noticed you backed off, and let's talk about it. Let's talk through it. And it's just learning these new ways of being, learning to undo, reprogram these thoughts in our mind that tell us, oh, we have to be this way, or it has to be perfect. or else it's not going to be at all. And
Yeah.
it's just creating these repeating patterns for
Yeah.
people. But you and I have been really good about recognizing, calling out the patterns, and giving space for those, whether it's space together or space apart, giving space for us to work through those feelings and to really reframe it and say, okay, no, I'm not actually being codependent. I'm approaching this from an aspect of authenticity. I'm choosing to be in this loving connection and not relying on them to be a source of, oh, my next love dopamine hit.
Yes, exactly that. Or security, safety and security, and
Yeah.
there have been times where one or the other has, shared, oh, honey, I'm needing some space. I'm in a process right now. And we've
Mhm.
pulled away from each other and lovingly said, of course, I'll be here when you're ready. So it's
Yeah.
been, that a really healthy ebb and flow. Um, so I wanted to give some love to that because I think that maybe some people have a story around a deep connection with someone, either, means it's romantic, it's a romantic thing, or, oh my gosh, maybe I'm leaning on them too much. I should be independent. I shouldn't be so connected to them. But I think, that we all do get to have beautiful relationships that offer us the safety, the trust, the um the the love that we didn't receive when we were growing up, that we didn't receive when we were younger. And by practicing the, self-reflectiveness of where am I coming from in this connection call? Where am I reaching for to feel a quick fix? Am I reaching to feel better? That helps keep it in proper perspective where you don't lean into those more dysfunctional ways of being. But I did want to give love to the importance of having, potent connections and it not needing to be dysfunctional.
Yeah, I really like, as you were talking, I was thinking about how, we call each other mama.
Yeah,
And it's because we've created this nurturing space. Talking about the dysfunctional piece, you can't really heal from dysfunction while in dysfunction. You can't
yeah,
you can't change that program if you're living in an environment that is just all dysfunction. And so I think that the one of the beautiful things about our relationship has been that we have created such a nurturing space for us to work through those levels of dysfunction that we've experienced from our traumas and from the things that we have learned and had ingrained in our patterning. So I just
yeah,
wanted to call that out a little bit too, and say that we've really created this beautiful, healthy, loving space to work through those things.
yeah. Love that. Love that. Thank you. Well, I think we're approaching a good time. Is there anything else
Yeah.
that you'd like to share to this?
Hmm. Just that this whole experience of being friends with you, being and friends is such a like doesn't even touch the the
Yeah,
level to which our
yeah,
connection is, but I've really appreciated the intentionality in our connection and how, like we've already talked about all the things that we've covered, we have both created this beautiful, intentional, loving space to explore what it actually looks like to have healthy love for one another and to share that these kinds of connections don't have to be so rare. It's simply a
Mm,
matter of choosing to allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough and seen enough in our autonomy, in our authenticity, and allowing others to be the same.
yeah. Yes, Mama, that was so potent. And I will add to that that it is a choice. Because every time you and I connect, it's a choice. We are choosing to bring energy to our connection. So often, friendships They get so busy with life, and it's not so much of a choice to feed into the relationship and to really give your time. It is our most
Yeah.
precious resource to the relationship. And that's something that you and I believe also has been a recipe of this, you know,
Yeah.
um, that we've chosen to show up for each other and for the relationship. And
Hmm.
not everybody wants to choose that, but if they are desiring to have a relationship like this, there gets to be not only you making that choice, but recognizing the person on the other side is choosing you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a mutual cultivation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, Mama. Thank you for being here on this call.
Thank you for the idea. I loved the idea when you suggested it. So yeah, thank you for making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, to whomever this lands on, we send you our love.